Yeah, this is the secret to success. To discover it, I will tell you this story. Look, it was the mid-20th century. In the burning fields of California, rows of vineyards stretched out to the horizon. In the middle of those fields worked a young man. Everyone knew him as the young laborer. A face hardened by the sun, hands full of calluses and small wounds that never fully healed. He lived among many other laborers, all crowded into narrow rooms with hard cots and blankets that barely covered the cold of dawn. There were dozens, maybe hundreds, and they all worked under the same orders, to cut grapes for the boss. Every day was the same. The young laborer woke up to the sound of boots hitting the wooden floor, and the voices of his companions, half asleep, half resigned. He had coffee with tortillas for breakfast, put on his worn-out hat, hung the pruning shears on his belt, and went out to work in the vineyard with his companions. In the field, the harshest voice of all awaited him. "Faster, young man!" shouted the boss from atop his horse, with a whip in hand that sometimes cracked just to scare. "The grape doesn't wait." The laborer lowered his head. "Yes, sir." He never looked up. He knew that if he talked back too much, he could lose his place in the crew. The young man was a laborer. He was paid by the basket, and the baskets were never enough. The pay barely covered beans, stale bread, and sometimes a little chili or onion. At night, tired, he lay down on the narrow cot. He listened to the heavy breathing of his companions, all exhausted, all the same, all resigned to live and die in the boss's vineyards. But while he cut for others, while he carried baskets that were not his, the young man dreamed. He dreamed of cutting for himself. He dreamed of a piece of land, even if it was small, where he could plant grapes with his hands and say, "This is my vineyard," or "Matarso Mantala." It always pained him to depend on the boss, on an employer. That dream kept him alive, though it also made him suffer. Sometimes when he collapsed, he thought of his mother. He remembered her in the kitchen, poor, kneeling, praying with her eyes closed. He remembered her saying, "Son, life is hard, but don't let it break you. Someday, if you persist, God will open a door for you." And the young laborer, before sleeping, repeated those words like a prayer. The boss knew it. He saw the different sparkle in the young man's eyes, and that's why he attacked him more than the others. "A vineyard, eh?" he said out loud, making sure all the laborers heard him. "That's for owners, not for laborers." The companions laughed, some out of fear, others mockingly. One murmured to the young man in a tone of compassion, "Don't dream so much. Those who dream in the field stumble over the stones." The young laborer lowered his head and, in a barely audible voice, replied, "Someday." The boss, mimicking his tone, let out a cruel laugh. "Someday, someday you'll get tired, boy, and when that happens, I'll be the first to tell you. I warned you." Each word was a blow. Each mockery left him with a heavy heart, but also with the fire that wouldn't go out. He knew that if he listened to the boss, he would give up. If he persisted, he would move forward, and the young man chose to move forward. First, he started saving. Every coin that fell into his pocket he saved as if it were a sacred seed. No new boots, no new hat. No bars, even if his companions invited him with laughter and pats on the back. "Come on, young man, one night won't kill you," one said, raising a bottle. You have to forget your troubles, even if just for a few hours. The young man shook his head. If I spend today, I lose tomorrow. If I save today, tomorrow I buy land. The others looked at him as if he were crazy. Land? They mocked. Land is for those born owners, not for those born cutters. Chapawa. The young man did not respond, but silently thought of his mother. He remembered her voice. Son, save the little, the little. With patience, it becomes much. Day after day, he saved every cent until he gathered a small bundle of crumpled bills, kept under the blanket of his cot as if they were a treasure. With courage, he sought out a man who sold plots of land. His heart was pounding. He placed the money on the table and said firmly, I come to buy a small piece of land. The man with fat hands stained with tobacco. He took the money, counted it, and let out a loud laugh. With this, he mocked, with this, you can't even buy the fence, boy. The young laborer straightened up. It's what I have. I work hard. The man pushed him with disdain. Then work twice as hard and come back when you're somebody. The young man pressed his lips together. He put away the bundle with clumsy hands. He left there with a churning stomach. He wanted to cry, but held back. If I get offended, I lose myself, he thought, remembering his mother, and moved on. Sometime later, he gathered his courage and went to the bank. The place smelled of ink and new paper. Everything shone. Everything seemed to tell him, you don't belong here. He approached the counter. The banker looked him up and down as if he were invisible. I want a small loan, said the young man with a trembling voice. I will buy a strip for grapes. I can pay month by month. The man opened a book. He asked without looking him in the eye. Properties? None. Guarantors? None. The man slammed the book shut. The sound echoed in the young man's chest. You can't, because you're a laborer. You have nothing as collateral. Come back when you have something to lose. The laborer lowered his gaze. I will work more. Work as much as you want, said the man, already looking at someone else. Without collateral, there's no deal. The young man left in silence. Outside, the sun burned his skin. But the banker's words burned him more. He walked slowly, with heavy boots, until he reached the laborer's quarters. He threw himself on the cot, pressed his face against the rough blanket, and that time he did cry. He cried silently, so his companions wouldn't hear him. My God, he whispered between sobs. Give me strength. If you truly listen to the poor, hear this cry. He prayed with all his heart. He asked God to give him an opportunity, even if it was small, and when he fell asleep, still with tears on his face, a soft voice brought him hope, his mother's, as if it came from heaven. Son, even if doors are close to you, don't stop knocking, one will open. The young laborer woke up with that phrase etched in his heart. He knew it wasn't the end. Months later, the young laborer took a risk. With the little money he had managed to gather, he rented a strip of barren land. An old man from the village offered it to him almost for free. First, the ground was cracked, hard, full of dry weeds that seemed like nails driven into the earth. Seeing it, the old man spat on the ground and said in a tired voice, "It's cheap because it doesn't yield. They planted here before, and nothing." The young laborer lowered his gaze to the ground, took a handful of soil between his fingers. It was dusty, bitter, without strength. Even so, he clenched his hand and replied, "It will give." The old man shrugged and handed him the rusty keys to an old fence. The young man worked day and night. He removed weeds with his hands until his palms were raw. alive. He straightened posts that looked like twisted bones, tightened old wires that broke as if they were made of glass, and every afternoon he carried water with buckets from the canal, drop by drop, like giving water to a sick person. At first, a few green shoots sprouted. The young man's heart filled with hope. He watched them like a father watches his child's first step, but soon misfortune arrived. The canal brought water at the wrong time, sometimes too much, sometimes none. The sprouts dried up, yellow like old straw, and what little survived the birds devoured mercilessly. One day, while the young man watched the dry branches helplessly, he heard the sound of hooves. It was the boss. He stopped his horse in front of the land, observing everything with a crooked smile. "I told you," he said, looking at the dead sticks, "you were born to cut grapes, not to grow thee." The young laborer took a deep breath. "I am learning." The boss let out a dry laugh. "Learn to obey." He concluded harshly. "Come back to my crew." "At least there, you eat." The young man lowered his head. He did not respond. He returned to the crew. Once again, cutting grapes for others, filling baskets that weren't his. But every night, even though his hands ached and his body begged for rest, he returned to his dead strip. He sat in front of the dry land and murmured, "Hold on, I hold on too." He saved money again, seed by seed, coin by coin. One day he approached a plant seller. The man showed him some weak vines with thin stems and almost withered leaves. "They are cheap because they don't take root," he warned him. The young laborer looked at them with faith. "They will take root," he said, convinced. He planted them carefully, as if they were fragile creatures. He watered them patiently, with hands trembling from exhaustion, but full of hope. But that winter, misfortune struck again. A frost covered the field. At dawn, the leaves were black, burned by the ice. They broke when touched, like fine glass. The boss appeared again. He bent down, picked up one of the dead leaves, and let it fall with disdain. "You're not cut out for this," he said coldly. "Accept your fate, laborer." The young man did not respond. He just gathered the dry plants and buried them as if they were small, lifeless bodies. Then he lifted his head towards the gray sky. Tears burned in his eyes, but he swallowed them. He still did not cry, but that night, upon returning to the room, the weight of defeat was unbearable. The hat fell to the ground. The young laborer sat on the cot, elbows on his knees and jaw trembling. The boss's laughter echoed in his head like hammer blows. "You were born to obey." "You were born to obey." He covered his ears, but the voice was still there, growing louder. And then, amidst the noise of the memory, he heard another voice. Soft, sweet. His mother's voice like a whisper coming from afar. "Sine, hvorfor er det now, son? Even if doors are closed to you, keep knocking. One will open. Oh, or The young man closed his eyes tightly. The tears ran hot, this time without restraint. He fell to his knees beside the cot, clasped his hands and prayed, "My God, I can't take it anymore. Give me a door, even if it's small. If you truly listen to the weary laborer, listen to me." His prayer mingled with his tears, and amidst that crying, a spark of hope reignited. He got up with his face swollen from tears and counted his last coins. It wasn't much, but it wasn't zero. Days later, he heard a rumor. among the laborers. They said there was a forgotten strip next to an old canal, a rocky land full of salt crusts. Nobody wanted it. The young laborer went to see it. The ground crunched under his boots. He crouched down, took a handful of soil, and crumbled it. Among the salt and stones he still felt a faint breath. "It breathes if you help it," he murmured. He looked for the owner, a thin and tired man. "Are you selling the strip?" the young man asked. "I sell it. Nobody wants it," replied the man with resignation. The laborer showed his wad of bills, crumpled and damp from hiding it so much. "I have little. It's everything." The man hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "I laugh if I say it's worth more. If you dare, it's yours." They shook hands. Deal done. The true battle then began. The young laborer had no weapons other than his hands and his faith. Day after day he removed stone after stone. Some were as large as heads. He carried them on his back and threw them off the land until the land breathed. He drove in posts, tightened wires, measured each distance with a rope. He dug furrows so that the canal water, though little, would reach each plant. He bought a few plants, but strong ones. He cared for them with devotion. He leaned over them and spoke to them like children. "Hold on, I am holding on too." He placed ribbons to scare away birds. He pruned on time. He weeded with his own hands, even though he ended up with his back twisted in pain. The boss passed by several times. He no longer mocked as much, though he still had a cold tone. "I've never seen anyone talk so much to the earth," he said one day. The laborer responded calmly. "If the earth hears me, it responds." Seasons passed. The stems grew. The leaves opened. One day small clusters began to appear. The young man looked at them tenderly, caressing them with his gaze. "If I cut them early, I end up with nothing. If I wait, they fill up." He waited. The sun ripened them. The air filled with a sweet aroma. The clusters gained weight like purple bells. One dawn, the boss arrived walking. He stopped in front of the furrows, incredulous. "I can't believe it," he said. "There was nothing here." "Now there is something," replied the laborer. The boss, ignoring the response, leapt with a face that does not admit defeat. Weeks passed. Harvest time arrived. The young laborer got up with the first crow of the roosters. The air was fresh and damp, and the vines glistened with the morning dew. He took out his pruning shears, sharpened them calmly, and leaned over the first cluster. He held it for a moment in his hands, like someone holding a treasure. Then, with a firm cut, he let it fall into the basket. One after another, the clusters filled the boxes. The young man works tirelessly. Two trusted companions helped him, not for pay, but out of respect. Among the three of them, they were enough to gather that modest but steady harvest. When the truck was loaded, the young laborer didn't wait for anyone, didn't ask the boss for permission, didn't seek approval. He himself took his boxes to the buyer. In the warehouse, the air was filled with the scent of wood and old wine. The buyer, a man with a wide mustache and attentive eyes, took a bunch of purple grapes. He tasted it slowly, squeezed it in his hands, and weighed it on the scale. He looked up, surprised. Sweet, solid, clean. The young laborer felt his chest tighten, as if all the suffering had been worth it in that moment. "Whose grapes are these?" asked the buyer. The laborer raised his head and said clearly, "Mine, from my vineyard." The buyer looked at him intently, as if wanting to confirm he wasn't lying, and then he smiled, satisfied. "Good," he said, "then I will pay you this much per box." The number he mentioned was fair, more than fair. The laborer closed his eyes for a moment and murmured to himself, "Thank you, my God." A few days passed. The buyer, a man of his word, mentioned in another negotiation to the boss, "Today you bring me your grapes, but I must tell you that yesterday I received fruit from one of your laborers, a young man. He brought firm, sweet grapes like I've rarely seen. The boss frowned, surprised. "A laborer?" "Yes," the buyer replied calmly. "A young man said that the vineyard is his, and I believe it, because the grape doesn't lie." The boss remained silent. Inside, he was burning. He had spent months mocking, saying that the young man was doomed to fail. And now it was another man, a fair buyer, who told him that this laborer he despised had achieved the impossible. One afternoon, as the sun was setting and the shadows lengthened the furrows, the boss appeared on the young laborer's land. He wasn't on horseback. He walked slowly with his hands behind his back. The laborer saw him coming, but did not get up. He continued working, clearing weeds from the land. The boss stopped in front of him. For a moment he said nothing. Then he lowered his gaze and spoke in a dry voice, but without mockery. "Good job." The young man looked at him without stopping. "Thank you." The boss clenched his jaw. "I'm ashamed. I mocked you, but I see you do your work very well." He extended his hand. The laborer hesitated for a moment, then shook it firmly. There were no more words, no long apologies or applause, just that brief gesture full of respect. At dusk, the young laborer sat at the edge of his vineyard. The air was filled with the sweet aroma of ripe grapes. He looked towards the canal, almost dry at the end of the day, and thought, if I gave up, none of this would exist. He remembered his mother's voice, clear in his memory. "Son, even if they close the doors, keep knocking." He smiled because the truth was simple, impossible to forget. Sometimes life resembles that dry, hard land where nothing seems to grow. Many give up, convinced that their destiny is already written. But the truth is that success does not come to those who complain or wait for miracles without effort. It comes to those who persist, who try again, even with tears in their eyes, to those who decide to sow hope where others only see a desert. Because perseverance is not just enduring, it is continuing to move forward until life opens the right door. Today I ask you, how many times have you stopped knocking on doors because they seemed closed? Remember what the scripture says, and ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened to you. Matthew 7:7. Perseverance is the key to success.